Welcome, 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 everyone. Just wait for a few more people to jump in. I've got Ed here with me from Silly Gilly, or he is Silly Gilly rather. Say something, Ed, so we can see if people can hear you.
Can everyone hear me?
There we go. Who we got? Jonathan's in. Hi, Jonathan. How you doing? So I'm just gonna wait for a few more people to jump in, and then I'm gonna do a little intro. Obviously, you know who I am. You've seen this balding and bearded face numerous times recently. Wow, loads of people are in. Graham, Lucas, Sunny, Ryan, Adam, Point Six Reaper. Hello, everyone. That's a really good turnout. Straight off the bat, people like you, Ed. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go see that handsome man that hides in the grass and stalks people.
That's you.
I think that's pretty judgy. It's pretty judgy.
But you're hiding in grass, but not at an airsoft game.
That's true. I just hide in the woods over the road and just throw stuff at dog walkers. Right, so everyone, I have got Ed here. So Ed, if you didn't know, is Silly Gilly, and he's on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and he crafts. He crafts well. He's been doing it. I don't know how long he's been doing it. Have an intro, Ed. Tell the lovely people what it is you do and sort of a bit of history. How did Silly Gilly come to be?
Well, actually, if you flick to the intro image, that kind of tells. Yeah, so that's actually my first on the right hand side was my first attempt, and I think it was about
Do
2016, 17,
you know
and
how
that's
everyone
the
knows that's your first attempt? Red and
yeah,
orange leaves.
yes.
It's the
Well,
dead giveaway,
I
isn't
put it
it?
in there. I put it in there to sort of uh, basically say I was one of you once, but no, I was one of like many people starting crafting. But interestingly, though, the picture on the left was made by someone who I now pretty much like. Well, a lot of my work is really based on what he's done, and
Mm.
that's Lekova in 2010. So 7 years before my joke of a ghillie suit. Uh, Clearly, there was like a long learning curve. So I think it'd be wrong to not credit like the person that's been doing it the longest time at the start. I don't want to like have to obviously keep mentioning whose ideas is who
Yeah,
because
I
then
think it's one of
tedious.
those. A lot of these ideas aren't the ideas of the people pushing them today. They're the
Yes.
people on social media doing it, but people were using Hessian and cotton 80 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a new thing. It's something that fell out of, I won't say fashion, but it fell out of the limelight. There wasn't a need for it. Obviously, loads of stuff we're doing today is advanced versions of what's been done for, yeah, the better part of like 80 years. Like, it's, you go back and look at some of the ghillie suits from like the early 1900s, early 20th century, even.
Yeah.
Loads of stuff. So, how did you get into ghillies then? I suppose that's what everyone's going to ask. And hello, everyone in the chat. I can see there's quite a few of you in there. A lot, too many to say hello to. But yeah, what prompted you to get into sniping and specifically crafting?
Uh, it was playing like I think I played my first game probably 2012 or 2000. I took a long break when I went to uni, but I was aware of people obviously wearing ghillies, and I saw how effective they were, and I just thought this is fun. I like the idea of a different type of game of airsoft, like a different way of playing. Um, and then, yeah, then recently, due to like the COVID lockdown, like I was always a bit of a perfectionist with my own suits. So I thought, why not try crafting suits for other people? And it was very slow to begin with, and now it's doing better. But yeah, that's really how I got into it. And those are yeah, the left those are the two pictures, two different suits. Uh, One on the left is really a carbon copy, really, of Lekova's
Hmm.
previous picture, just with his developed Halo screen. And then the right hand one is a KMCS with BDU trousers.
Yeah,
And
see, I
yeah,
like BDU crafting, like direct crafting to BDU on your legs. Obviously,
yeah,
obviously you and me were talking about this offline the other day about that Marpat one I've got, and I was just wearing it around the house the other day, just to see how hot it got. Just walking around the house like hoovering and stuff, I was like, it can't be that warm. Considering how thin the BDU material is, it is
Mm.
incredibly good at keeping that heat in. Like, I'm just hoovering the house, I'm like, just sweating, and it's not even crafted, it's got like 8 bits on it. But, yeah, I think BDUs. So, did you say that was a KM on the right hand side, a KMCS base?
So right hand side, the top
Yeah. Oh,
inked green,
yep.
and then the bottoms are just BDU trousers that I've crafted. And BDU trousers that I've crafted are now the only thing that I wear as trousers, just because like it's
Brambles, sharp things.
bramble.
Yeah.
Exactly. Obviously, people sometimes wear BDUs under the mesh, but then it's like another layer.
Yep.
So yeah.
No, I'm with you on that. I will
And also like
generally I run hoods or tops, but always BDUs on the bottom. Generally just Marpat or Pencott.
yeah, exactly. Those are two great 2D patterns. But yeah, so BDUs on the bottom. I also think like I don't know the science of this, but I swear like you expel the most heat where your sweat glands are, and most of your sweat glands are in your upper body. So
Yeah.
um, that's where the mesh needs to really be. Yeah.
So I suppose we've got some sort of, for those that are in the thing, obviously we've got some sort of 4 high level topics we're going to go through, and Ed kindly sent over some pictures I've put together, so we've got some reference materials there. Um, just a quick one for everyone in the chat, and I'm conscious that Ed, you might, I don't know which way to look because I've got cameras everywhere. You might not see all the comments, but basically, if you're in the stream and you're watching, if you've got a question, ask the question using the question ticket, because they just get lost in the trail of comments. But at the end of the stream or towards the end, I'll go through that question card, I think it's called, and I'll pick out as many questions as I can for either myself or Ed. Probably Ed. You know, look at him crafting over there. It's gonna be him, isn't it? It's why we're all here. So,
I'll have some questions for you if they don't.
so bases. There we go. Talk to me about this. What's the thoughts going on here?
Yeah, so left hand side is a Viper concealment vest. It's really just a Cobra hood with a cape. And
Annoyingly, they're
then
stopping that,
yeah,
which is
well,
frustrating.
hopefully there'll be some other things coming out though. So
Yeah.
and then the right hand one is a uncrafted KMCS, and those are really like they make up probably 90% of the 2 base suits that I craft. And yeah, that the right hand one there is actually just a bit crafted on the shoulders, but yeah, you can see it's perfectly effective for like leaves. Uh,
Yeah,
all
it
I
looks.
do,
That's
all
a
I do
brown
after that is
base.
yeah, it's a brown
Yeah.
base. All I do after that, and we'll get onto it, but um, there's very little needed really for something like a brown KMCS. I mean, I know I do craft them, but you'll see that you'll see that later on. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
and then
I use, I'd say I don't craft half as much as I used to, but the go-to bases are same as you. Like if I don't want to run a full suit, I'm either going Viper concealment vest like that, or the ones that don't have the cape. You know, just like the head shoulders one. I've got a ton of those, just because they don't take that long. Obviously, there's a lot less of them to work with. But suit wise, I've got FSB, KM, North Mountain, same as you. And yeah, I think the KM colours and the way the leaves are done are certainly a good base. You don't need to. You, I mean, this is going to be a question I was going to ask, and if we won't talk about it now because I know it gets tracked. But I think so many times I spot people at games is because they've overcrafted their suit to the point of where it's perfect in 10% of where they're playing, but they've now made it ineffective in 90% of the other places because they've just done too much. So I think there's a bit of a balance there, but some more bases here.
yeah, I think it'd be unfair to show like some of the competition and competition to the KMCS and the
Well, it's
thing.
just
So
it's
yeah,
different budgets, isn't there? Different budgets,
yeah,
different bases.
and they're not performing too badly. I mean, bear in mind this was a bit of an unfair test because it was damp ground that I was putting these on. But the left hand one is a North Mountain gear, and the right hand one is an MFH. And then yeah, you can say a bit. I know you quite like the North Mountain gear one after you've
Yeah,
model.
yeah. So MFH, I like the color. Like if you look at the browns of the MFH, they're not half bad. The
Yeah,
problem with it is they're made
it's
of paper
yeah,
and they're shiny and they're a weird copolyester, so they really don't. You can spray paint them and it'll come off, but they don't dye very well. Whereas North
they don't
Mountain
dry at all. Yeah,
is like that's. I don't like their greens. I think their greens are too green in a green environment, let alone obviously on the ground. But I like the materials of North Mountain. They're thick. The mesh is good, albeit they are incredibly hot. The hottest ghillie suits I've ever
it's
worn. Like
it's
for a
because
winter suit, you could wear a
yeah,
t-shirt and just that, and you'd be fine. You'd be absolutely fine because they are boiling. But they're
yeah,
strong. The leaves are strong and they're thick. The colors aren't the best though. Like the, I don't know
no,
if you can
and that's
say a
the
color
thing.
looks cheap, but the
I
browns
mean,
look cheap.
how much? I think a North Mountain suit, it is really the only other mesh suit available that is nearly as strong as the KMCS.
Yeah, I think
But
I don't know what they are
but
now. You don't really see them here in Europe, but I think they used to knock out for about 80 quid or something. And they had like a few
yeah,
versions. They had like a premium one, which was pretty dense, which I quite liked. And they had a
yeah,
weird hybrid one that had some just string on it, which
yeah.
they're a bit weird. But
But anyway,
yeah,
they're okay. I mean, I personally would like. I have to be honest. Like, I do wear the KMCS, and I have a relationship with James, I guess. So I have to just be honest and say,
yeah, exactly. And that's the
uh,
thing. Like, it doesn't
yeah,
matter that it's a KM suit because it's the color. That's the
yeah,
stat suit. Like, obviously, the KM suit is it's an old suit re-engineered.
yeah,
Like that color is Jack Pike, original Jack Pike from years and years and years ago. It's gone through a
yeah.
few little revisions and stuff. So it's the suit that's good. Like obviously there are some KM fans, there are some people that aren't too keen. But if you
I
took the
obviously
name
did.
out and
You
just
went
looked
on,
at the product, it's a good
yeah,
product. Like you can't
yeah. I
argue with
mean,
it. It is.
so you can't take our word for it for sure, but you can go on any Facebook forum and
Yeah.
ask, and everyone will say the KMCS is worth the price. So at the
Yeah.
moment, it seems to be the only real
Yeah. It's
like it.
so for
So
there it goes back to the we seem to be steaming ahead, so we can actually take time to talk a little bit. Um, but yeah, it goes a lot of it goes back to budget. Like obviously, I don't know how your sort of business model works, but um, obviously, someone might come to you and go, "I want you to craft me a suit," and I'm assuming you'd go, "Okay, what have you got a suit? What base do you want? What's your budget?" Because someone might come to you and go, "I've got £200 Cam CS3, or I've got a £150 Cam 2, or a
yeah,
50 quid NMG." Like, they'll come and say, "I've got X, Y, and Z." Or do you sort of go, "Come look at my wares," and then just show them a rack of Gillies you've got?
it really depends how much they know already about things. Because if
Mm.
they don't know anything, I have to run through all the base meshes and kind of explain that the MFH suit is going to rip, and so is the Jack Pike suit. I mean, and then really the only two options I end up like, I don't feel comfortable. I know I've crafted a few, but I don't feel comfortable crafting an MFH suit really because
Well,
it's going to rip.
crafting an MFH suit is like putting a
But then,
V12 in
yeah,
a Fiat Punto. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
it might
So,
work
so,
great until it breaks.
so the Viper mesh is really the Viper concealment
Mm.
vest. That is super strong. I have to say I think it's the strongest apart from maybe the Novritsch Gilly. It's got the same kind of material almost as the Novritsch Gilly. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah, that's with the mesh. You've only really got like four types. You've got the really cheap wispy stuff, which is what the current Jack Pike stuff is made of, and like MFH. Then you've got the more thick cotton based rather than copolyester, which is North Mountain, and they're pretty
yeah,
much the only ones that do it. Then you've got like the thicker sports mesh, which is I don't know if they still do, but do you know Swede Team? They
yes,
had a batch
you've
of
got that
Gillies a
glove.
while back, and they were made of really similar mesh to North Mountain, and now they've gone back to like the copolyester plasticky mesh.
Yeah.
But in terms of the proper mesh, like the really good stuff, yeah, it's pretty much Viper, FSB, KM, and oddly, as you said, the Nov stuff isn't too bad. It's just Nov colors are just they hurt me. They hurt me here, right
Yeah.
here.
I think he was maybe going for a more universal Gilly. I say that diplomatically because
Yeah, the thing is,
I don't know for sure, but I think the Novritsch Gilly's colours, I mean they're multicam and multicam is a universal camouflage.
yeah, he
I know
uses
I know he
the
does
China.
different kinds, but
Yeah, the
yeah, I
main.
didn't really,
I think he's called it Alder. Alder is like the oldest, cheapest, most non-effective
yeah,
camo you can get.
Amazon
But
£20 job, yeah.
depending on the material it's on, it dies alright, believe it or not. Like it
Yeah.
actually doesn't die that bad. Like if you boil it and use the stuff I can't remember, dial the blah
Yeah,
blah
well, let's get on. Like that's the next slide, so we'll talk about that.
when it wants to click on. No, that's not the one. Pattern. Boop.
Yeah, so obviously you can use spray paint, and I
I love
have
spray
used spray
paint.
paint, but for certain materials, I found it fades and peels off. I don't know how it's peeling off or why it's peeling off, but this is basically ink, acrylic ink,
Iodine poly.
and
That's the one. Sorry, Karen.
yes, yes. But the thing about that is it's quite hard to control where you dye
Mm.
it. Whereas this, you can literally just use. It's very user friendly. You don't need any equipment. You just need a paintbrush and this. And if you flick to the next slide, you'll see. Yeah, so the right hand one there is a KMTS that's just been inked. So all I've done there is a paintbrush and that's it. And then you can see how precise you can make a pattern, a big pattern, macro, a fancy word, macro pattern. But yeah, a macro pattern of a darker shade. So yeah.
Yeah, ink is definitely. I'm with you on ink. I don't use it so much on suits, mainly because I've got a couple of suits and I haven't really had to craft for a while. But when I used to do leaves or cotton, I had like the most cheapest, laziest ghetto way of doing it, which is get your leaves or your cotton, you like the cheap, crappy silk ones, boil them or tumble dry them with fabric conditioner so they go all soft and fluffy.
Yeah.
And I used to just spray them damp, get a carrier bag, and just throw them in, chuck a load of ink in, and just scrunch it,
Yeah.
leave it outside to dry. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I don't. I like crafting. I enjoy it. I find it relaxing.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have the. I don't get the same enjoyment out of it that you do.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't take me like I've just said paintbrush, and I've now got it in my mind that people are going to think that I'm painting each individual leaf with a paintbrush. It's really not like that at all. It's a huge brush that I'm just going zoom, 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 all over the suit. And honestly, like that modification you see there takes me on the full suit probably takes me less than 10 minutes. So yeah, and it's a very easy way to start a good crafting suit because it then gives you the basis of where to put your 3D materials. Oh yeah, well, we should talk quickly about that. So that's just the Viper hood,
Yep.
and that is using a Molotov spray paint. And I do find this one doesn't peel off. Like on this particular mesh, it works well. And yeah, you'll see if you go back to the previous one, you'll see the two next to each other how much darker. So that's MTP. Also, it's their version. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
BTP.
British terrain pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's too light for UK woodland, so you really do have to darken it. And then when you darken it, you can create the pattern again. And then you see like some brief field tests there. You have to really blur your eyes when you do these kind of things because obviously you can see the mesh lying on the ground, but you can go far away and then test it. But yeah.
Yeah, well, with 2D bases, like there's a reason why some camos without any 3D elements whatsoever just work. I mean, like Marpat is what you literally take Marpat, old Marpat as well. I've got a pair of Marpat trousers that are sort of faded now because I've had them a while, so they've been a bit bleached and just dirty. You throw them on a winter forest floor, and you start taking a few steps back. That just as a 2D pattern just really works. And
Yeah.
oddly, in summer, if you're in woods and the ground's got sort of the dry bits, the wet bits, and obviously the fresh stuff and the old stuff, vegetato, like Italian vegetato, oddly
Oh,
works quite well because it's not as bright, but it's got a lot more tan shades in it that work well with like the dry, crusty leaves and stuff. But so, are you happy to move on to 3D materials?
I say structured. Yes, let's do it.
I like structure.
Yeah, it's not my idea at all. Yeah, so the main two
And
or
cat,
three materials I use, and you can see them all on my Instagram: halo screen, raffia that you see there, and cottons. I put the raffia there on the tree and took a picture of it like that, just as a like an interesting way, an interesting story. So that's how Lukova came up with the idea of halo screen. He saw that it caught the light from behind and passed it on, and therefore increased the area of light on a surface or suit. So you can, the way that it deflects light came from raffia.
yeah, it makes sense. It's the same as obviously leaves and stuff. You walk past a leaf that's got the sun glaring behind it, and obviously all of a sudden the leaf glows. It appears to put out light as opposed to just absorbing it or reflecting it. Is it refracting?
And it's not just in refracting. Yeah, and it's not just in direct sunlight that it does that. It also is lighter in just under the canopy because of the way that it picks up light around it. That's the problem with a lot of suits. I was trying to find this picture before the stream, but basically there was a suit of a Amazon, cheap Amazon suit, and it's always too dark. I don't know what it is, especially when you get them wet. They're too dark in a lot of environments, and that's one of the problems that was trying to be solved with Halo Screen. So yeah, and then cottons, they're just brown cottons, and everyone knows I don't use fake leaves. I don't.
Yeah,
It's probably quite a 10 year discussion, that, because I know a lot of people
I think it's shifting. Like,
yeah.
Someone commented in the comments, a guy called Phil Osborne, I don't know if you ever met him. He used to be in Sniper Ops with us years ago when Sniper Ops was still small. And he was sort of one of the early people that started using ink. Like, he got us all onto Pebeo, which is a specific brand that we use, like Umbra, Raw, Sepia, and some of the other colours. And he used to do it years and years and years ago with those crappy leaves.
Yeah.
And they're great, and everyone jumps on it, and everyone starts using it because obviously you can just use a single leaf, you can fold them, you can put them together, you can put them on cable ties. Like, they're quite versatile, but we don't have maple leaves here. Like, it's like the gleaming thing is we don't really have them. So you can scrunch them up and they work.
Yeah,
but that's it. Whereas cotton, it's like insanely cheaper. And you can do a lot more with it. It's not a predetermined. You buy a leaf, it's a leaf shape. Anything you do will only take away from the shape.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, I was one of the people that fell into buying shit tons of fake leaves and putting them all over my suit. Like, I did that when I started, and over time it sort of developed into cottons. But the reason I think that these fake leaves do so well is because they're just called leaves. Like, everyone wants leaves, right? And it's kind of probably not on purpose, but it is a sort of clever marketing trick to call the AliExpress leaves camouflage leaves.
Artificial, like there's and the thing is, there are some suits that if you were to look at and let's say they're I say traditional. What was traditional when I started isn't traditional now, and I imagine what we're doing today will not be in a few years. But if you look at like a normal LLCS suit, like let's just say Jackbite, they were first on the scene. Obviously, their whole ethos was like leaf concealment suit, leaf being the thing. So they had these jagged shapes that were there to obviously break up the shape, and they were a different material to allow light to come through to a degree. I think that was more of an accident than like a discovery.
Yeah.
And then people were putting leaves on it because they're like, you know what my leaf suit needs? More leaves.
Yeah.
Where am I playing? In leaves. What do we want? Leaves. So everyone was like,
Yeah.
great, leaves. And then
I
China
think,
comes along and like, do you want some fake leaves?
yeah.
You can dye
I
them.
mean, there's loads of issues with that. I mean, like leaves, if you get them too big, like the big maple, like the big sneaky leaves. I know they were super popular and kind of still are, and still people seem to crave for them. But if you get something that's too big in an environment where everything is small, it is going to stand out. And with cottons, you can make obviously them very small, but it doesn't really matter if they're too small, because they you can build up an impression with them. Like if you go to the next slide, I think it might be
The next one's a video. Are we happy with the video?
yeah, because you can see that.
Look at
Yeah,
that. Look at those fast hands.
yeah. But the point about this is like you can put these leaves next to each other and build up an impression of a color, which you can to some degree do with big leaves, like sneaky leaves, but it's very clumsy and you can't really control where they flop.
Yeah, I think when leaves became a big thing, everyone was less concerned with patterns and more concerned with trying to
Yeah,
fit in as opposed to belonging and to breaking up.
yeah,
Because leaves are anything you add to your suit that breaks up the shape is brilliant. Like there's people that I used to know that craft and they'd specifically craft one side, or they'd craft one arm. So when they're laying down, they've got one arm that's a completely different shape to the next arm. And
yeah,
that's great until you're laying down with all these big leaves in
yeah,
spring when everything's little buds and it's this big. And then you've got a big, nice maple leaf growing on a suit, and you're like, that
yeah,
doesn't quite belong there. But yeah,
yeah, and
Cotton, I'm with you on. I think you can just do so much with it. It fits what you need it to fit, and it's incredibly cheap. And if it
yeah,
rips and falls off, put some more on. Sneakily, if you look and you're like, no, I've lost £2, a leaf fell off.
yeah. I mean, the benefit of sneaky leaves back then was that they did create depth, and
Mm,
obviously cottons they're not as bushy as sneaky leaves, but that's where like you can do something clever with. You can create the illusion of depth because you can dye cottons very dark, like this cotton here.
yeah,
It's almost black. It's a sort of browny black. That can create the illusion of a shadow. So you can have a streak of those dark ones underneath a streak of light cottons, and it will look like the light cottons are catching the light, and the shadow forms are the dark ones. Um, and that works at all angles as well. Like even if you lay on the floor, that dark color is then going to become lighter, and you'll look like the floor. It sort of it's more adaptive than having these big leaves that always create a big shadow, whatever position you're lying in. That's just like
yeah.
my
No,
theory.
I think you're right. I think later on when we go through the chat or the questions, remember people, if you want to ask a question, use the little question thingy, and we'll go through them. I imagine one of the questions is going to be like, why do you prefer this material over that material or anything? But I'm with you on cottons. Like it's such a cheap. Like you can just use cotton in like 4 or 5 colors as it is, and it's fine. You cut it to the shape you want, and it's fine. Or if you're inclined, you can obviously dye it and get a variety of different colors. But it's just such a cheap. You can just do a lot with it. Like it isn't a set shape, right? You want to cut big chunks of it, you cut big chunk. If you want to add it like it's ripped, obviously you've cut it there so it's got jagged edges. Brilliant, you
Yeah,
can do that. You buy fake leaves, they're the shape of whatever you bought it, and if you do anything to it to change that shape, you're just taking away from it. Whereas
yeah,
cotton is brilliant, as is the next material coming up. Ba-doo.
yeah. Well, you have to use raffia because
Absolutely.
I mean it. The only bad thing about raffia is that it does degrade after a while, but it's very easy and quick to apply, as I'm not showing there.
Yeah.
um,
Speaking of
yeah,
deteriorating, just to get segued briefly, you got that Pentcot hood, right? No, you didn't get that.
yes.
Did I send you the Pentcot hood?
Oh no, sorry. You sent me the Pencourt trousers,
I
but you
sent
also sent me two hoods as well.
someone. I think he's in the chat. I had the Diversant hood that I crafted ages ago, and I used a lot of dyed Hessian, like Hessian strips dyed in like a couple of really good shades of green. Um, but I went to a game in France, so this was 3, 4 years ago, and obviously it was crafted, and I got there and I put loads of greenery on it. That has been in a wardrobe, and I took it out to send it to this guy, and everything was still green, but it had just gone like petrified. And I was like, imagine if you could just somehow just do that. Just grab bags of this stuff and just petrify it, and then just chuck it on at the beginning of a day, and then if it dies and falls off, great. But
Yeah.
like Raffia, it's one of those natural foliage is
Yeah.
great, but it just drops off and crumbles.
I do still put the odd bit of Hessian. I always mix it in. Like I do a big sort of area on the suit of just raffia. So if you put it like all over the suit, then it just is like I don't know. I think it looks better in clumps. But yeah, I put the Hessian in there with the raffia, and then it kind of blends in and buffs it up as well.
Again, it's cheap as well. Like that's the benefit of this stuff
cheap,
is it's time. Time is the bit that becomes expensive, either in terms of you're paying someone to do it or your own time. Like obviously, if I'm
exactly.
sat here doing 20 hours worth of crafting, that monetary wise isn't as valuable as me doing 20 hours of design work for someone or for myself. Any tips on the raffia for people?
I've been watching me doing it.
I'm mesmerized by it. Yeah,
it's really jarring. The only thing is like don't cable tie it straight on. Tie it onto the cable tie like I'm doing there, because it will just slip out. Like it's too thin to not escape the whole of the cable tie, basically.
Yeah. See, I like that you do that. I do that, and it's one of those 50-50 things. You'll see a lot of people that will tie it to itself or tie it in like a ribbon so it splits off at like 2 angles.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing there. So you see I've tied it to the cable tie.
But other people will just hold it and then cable tie around it, and then it just slips out.
Yeah. But exactly. And then I halve it and then put it back through the loop and then tighten it. It's the same on the leaves before. Like when you get to tightening the cable tie, if you leave it like 4 clicks before you actually pull it really tight, leave it that 4 clicks and open up the leaves the same way as the raffia, you can form like a flower, and
you get a little floret, don't you?
Pull it really tight. But yeah, that's that one.
Well, a question from me to you about raffia, actually, just because I can. I'm the host. I can ask questions. I'm in control. Do you use green raffia much? Obviously, the little video's just brown, but do you use or dye your own green raffia?
I have done in the past. I don't see. I probably should. I don't like it that much because I'm using Halo's green with it if I was doing greens, and like it doesn't help that much compared to like it's more about just breaking up the texture rather than the color. And raffia is a really interesting texture. But yes, greens I should probably do more of.
Frustratingly, you used to be able to get on eBay. It used to be called Sage. And it was a sage-coloured raffia, but it wasn't sage. It was like a perfect OD, and it was like £3 for like 500 grams of the stuff, and it was like you couldn't dye anything that would look as good as this. And every now and then, and I always keep an eye out for it because I've got the seller. I think I've got the seller bookmarked, but it just pops up, and it's just like normal brownie raffia. It's just good for just clumping in places because you can cut it really short, so it's almost like tufts of moss. Because you can literally shred it, like cut it really, really short into like a ball, and then just shred it, and it goes all fluffy, and it's cheap.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, almost moss.
Yeah,
like you did it. Yeah.
Because fake moss is terrible. Don't ever put that shit on your suit.
Yeah,
you look at it, and your house is covered. You walk from one room to the other, your house is covered, and it just falls off.
It's not fake. It's actually not fake moss. It's real moss that's been dyed. So it's obviously just going to fall apart. Well, I think that's definitely what I saw last time I tried buying that shit.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Never again. Yeah. So next one. This is actually just like about a tool that I use. It's an all tool, and I believe Kenny might try getting them in for people.
He's got. Yeah, I was down there today, and they're there.
I genuinely think this is like a really underheard of little thing. You can basically make holes in things like gloves. Like obviously you don't want to do a full suit because that would be crazy,
Mm.
which I've still done. But you can make holes in like gloves, webbing, uh, straps, anything that needs crafting. You just make it. You can see how quick it is there. And you thread the cable tie through.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
suits, obviously you've got mesh. That's not a problem. But you're right on like I run. I don't know what rigs and stuff you run, but I run the Viper rigs generally. I just like them. I think they're cheap. They work well, and I've always had good dealings with the company. But crafting them, I'd never thought of using what we're gonna call this a ghillie shank. Just the suits,
Yes.
the ghillie shank. But yeah, this if I'd have known this when I was crafting my freaking harnesses and rigs, this would have been genius because I used to just glue mesh to them and then craft through
Yeah.
the holes of the mesh. Whereas
I mean,
this,
gluing. That's not a stupid idea. Like,
oh, it's time
yeah.
consuming. It's really time
Well, no,
consuming.
it's probably not that much more time consuming. But the thing with this is like, because I'm using cottons, the
Mm,
cable tie itself has the function of not just tying the thing to the suit, but also holding its like 3D form.
yeah,
So, but if you're gluing, you can't do that. It's all just flat against the surface.
yeah. I used to use E6000 and Shugu and literally just get like the old Jack Pike mesh or just any mesh really, and just shoe glue that to my rigs, and then once it's
Yeah,
dried, you just weave through it like you would a suit. But for some of the like the flaps and more specifically the straps, you try and glue the mesh, it just comes off because it's constantly moving and being twisted.
yeah,
Whereas obviously just being able to poke bits through there,
yeah.
even if you just used it to make and almost use the hole to make like a lattice, a lattice of interlocked cable ties that you can then just anchor to. But
Yeah. That's good.
ghillie
That's
shank, I like it. It's good.
good shank.
It's a stabby tool, and it looks shank like, and you use it on a ghillie, so ghillie shank. I don't see anything wrong with ghillie shank. Um, what's next is field testing. Oh no,
Yes.
no, is this field testing? No, there we
Was
go.
it? No,
No
sorry, yeah.
one, yeah, this.
That's just sort of showing the density that I go for, like on a that's a Cobra head again. But yeah, it kind of shows like I don't overcraft. I don't feel like
Well, yeah,
I need to. The 2D like there's 40%. I said in a story I did recently, like I I try to keep the base mesh showing quite a lot. As actually that's not probably the prettiest picture I've got, but yeah, you can see like there's a lot of 2D mesh there on show, and yeah, it's breathable. Doesn't get in the way of everything. Obviously, it doesn't catch.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I have the benefit of I had first-hand experience with this suit. So people, if you any of you have been on the blog recently, Ed kindly sent me this suit to look at before it went on to a customer, just because I was curious. And Ed might have fancied me a bit. I don't know, but I got the suit before he passed it on to a customer, and it was really good. Like I did the review on it, did some content on it, and for something that didn't use a single fake leaf or a sneaky leaf or the maple leaves or any of the sort of artificial stuff, you could literally throw that on a forest floor and it was gone. Like, and it wasn't that heavy because cotton itself isn't heavy unless you are like bulking it out and then you're not wearing a ghillie suit anymore. You're just wearing a massive fleece and you'll melt. But yeah, that I was generally when I got that, I've said it to you obviously outside of the stream, but I'm happy to say it again on the stream. That was probably one of the best crafted hoods I'd seen based on the little amount of not effort material that went into it. Like,
yeah, I mean, don't forget that's obviously the Viper hood, so it's still got the retention loop. So if you did want to
mm,
add natural reg, you can do that. Um, Especially for like getting there's loads of
yeah,
sites in the winter that you can use green like rhododendrons.
yeah,
I was going to say brambles. Definitely don't use brambles, but I'm trying to think of green grass. I don't know. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, it just goes to show like, are you comfortable saying how long that took you, or a suit of that caliber took you?
yeah, sure. God, 8 9 hours, I think.
See, that's not too bad when you
That's
think.
like, don't forget, there's the process of making every bit of cotton you see there,
Yeah.
which I've sped up. I'm not going through cotton sheets and trimming around like a perfect leaf. It's nothing like that. I believe I've shown loads of videos of how I cut cottons now, but
Mm.
it's a very quick process when you've got it in layers and strips, and it's just like snip, 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 and you've got hundreds of things. But the time consuming bit is like all the little the bits at the start, like modifying the mesh, going and field testing that mesh, and make sure it's perfect because that's going to save you so much time later on. And then
Excuse me.
going out and field testing it the first time, seeing what's needed. I do live in the countryside, so it's easy for me to do. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we're not a million miles for each other.
yes. Well, it would be yeah.
Yeah,
It's going to happen.
we could be beer friends.
Yeah.
Saying that, Mark's obviously not a million miles from either of us. I think he's more your direction.
Yeah.
Kenny's nearer my direction. Right, there are a few people that you know and I know are actually all within like an hour. Like an hour from any one of us, we could all meet somewhere, which won't be at a site before you say. Although I might have some development on a site and events and stuff. Actually, I'll talk to you about that later. Kenny said Ed only fancies him. Sorry, I just saw that one comment coming. It caught my eye up on my
Who's
screen.
Kenny?
The small human, Empire Kenny,
Yeah.
the small one. He's like a regular person, but like 2/3 the size. He's gonna punch me when he sees me. Um, so that was that. So now the bit that everyone's gonna be really interested is field testing.
Yeah, so that's the same suit you saw just there. Um, I haven't. I know this type of test right here is obviously a bit biased towards the suit because there's nobody in it, and
Mm.
obviously when someone's in it, shadows are going to form. But it's still important, I think, to do this test just for seeing what the colors look like and seeing what it looks like in the environment you're playing in. Like, I'm in beech woodland there. I think there's an oak tree overhead as well. The ground is dry. The suit is dry. The earth underneath is probably a bit moist, but yeah, whatever. Like that's
You don't know how many people you've
midsummer,
just upset saying that word.
whatever.
People get funny about it, don't they?
What the word whatever? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Moist.
So yeah, and then yeah, if we go on to the next one, I think you'll see me. Oh yeah, so this is a more unfair kind of test to the suit. So it's like an upright on the left there. That's an upright KMCS. Um, Maybe it gives me an idea of what it looks like when I'm out there.
Yeah.
It's just slumped on like a branch that's on the floor, so it looks like a crouching Gilly, I guess. And then I don't know if viewers are going to be able to pick this out, but on the right there are three suits there,
Yeah.
and they are testing different materials. And this is like a, I guess it's not a very fair test because I'm on grass that has leaves on it, like dead brown leaves. But on the left is a BDU top, and then the middle, I don't know if you can make it out, but that's a KMCS with the like this was a suit that someone sent in, and I leapt on the opportunity to test it. But that's a KMCS with Novritsch leaves only on it, and then
Okay.
the right is a KMCS with Haley screen and cottons, and you can see it is a bit. But what you can see for yourself,
Yeah. I mean, none of them.
better than the.
The thing
Novritsch
is,
leaf.
and this is where it gets. Oh, the chat's kicking off about the word moist now. So you started it. Um,
Serious crafter, okay.
we are, we are. This is a serious business. But the thing with this is, whenever you show a picture, when you preface, the word I'm looking for, when you,
Frame.
when you frame it as, oh, this is a ghillie suit, immediately you're looking for it. If you were to
Yeah.
walk past, like the difference between knowing that something is there and looking for it, and then walking past the same thing, if you're not looking for it, a lot of the stuff that you see, these sort of staged pictures where people are really trying hard, but then they say, "Can you find me?" and then you're focused on one thing. Whereas if
Yeah.
you just put a picture and be like, can you see what's in it? And don't say whether it's a rifle wrap or a hat or a balaclava or a single solitary glove, that's when people really have to look. And then that's when people are like, oh, yeah, it's there. No, that's just some pile of dead leaves. So I
Yeah.
think when you've got tests like that, when you're prefacing it, there is a word beginning like that. It's going to do my head in now. Then you sort of give people a head start in looking for it. But if I didn't know that picture on the right specifically, if I didn't know what that was, at a glance, the furthest one on the right would be the one I'd be drawn to, purely because everything else looks flat, and that obviously has depth to it. Whereas the BDU, I personally, and again, this could just be my eyes, but the BDU on the left, the one you've crafted, I find that the hardest one to pick out a shape for, personally.
Yeah.
But they all look outstanding. Like, even just laid on grass with the leaves, they all look really good. Yeah. And if they were shit, I'd tell you. Like, I feel like you know me well enough to know now that I don't have a filter.
It's really just it wasn't really a fair test, but it was at the same time. Like, people are going to be playing in dead leaves, and there's no shadows formed because they're on flat ground. So it's really testing the materials, the 3 different materials. It wasn't like trying to show off any crafting skills. It was a genuine.
No, I mean, for you personally need to know, right? You need to be able to look at that and go, right, I've tried to build a pattern there, and then you might look at that and go, right, I've tried to do a pattern on the left arm, and now I actually see it out there, it sticks out. And you might go and change it and then go, you know what, I'm going to do half as much there, or I'm going to add some more. And a lot of the time it's testing, because you can, like, so many people, and I was guilty of this, before my first Sniper Ops event, this is probably on Instagram from like 2016 or something ridiculous. When I did my very first Sniper Ops event, I bought a Jack Pike suit on the Monday, and I spent like 5 hours every night up until the Thursday night crafting inside my house. And my garden has like one bush in it with one little bit of dirt under it with a few dead leaves. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be invisible. And then I get there and I've just got sneaky leaves coming out my arse.
I was the same. When I first made my suit, I genuinely thought it was the shit. I'm not kidding. Like, it's one of those things, like, you draw a picture when you're 5 years old and you get so into it that you think it's amazing. And obviously no teacher's going to come up to you and say, you're never going to be an artist. But
you went to better schools than I did. Yeah. Mine would be like, give up now. If that's your dream, just quit.
Yeah. And we should really get on to the questions, because
we got this.
Yeah, well, this is the sort of show-off test, I guess. There you go. Again, these are all kind of staged because I know where I'm going to hide. Like, I know where's good for the suit, and you can't always do this in game. So you have to take these tests with a pinch of salt.
I mean, I'll ask everyone in the chat towards the end of the stream, but I think you've touched on something there that I know we were going to talk about, and if this stream went on forever, we could certainly cover it. Is you know where your suit works. So you will, if you took 5 people and put them in that frame, most people will just, some people, not arrogantly, but just assume that they've crafted it and it'll work well everywhere. Whereas you might look at this, and I might look at it, and someone else might look at this and move into this area and not just go, where's a good ambush point? It's like, where am I going to be invisible? What part in that environment plays well to my suit? And that goes back to, obviously, yesterday, whenever we were talking, we were obviously saying about it's 40% your equipment and 60% you, like how you play, positioning, all that sort of stuff. But I mean, as a test,
that's the thing that, like, I don't think anyone's naive enough to think that you can just go and be invisible in a ghillie suit. Like, nobody thinks that. All I'd say
is, airsoft?
I don't. Yeah, but
you're telling me you haven't seen people rock up in a Novritsch suit, lay in the middle of the ground, and they get really annoyed because you've seen them?
Not that I've. Yeah, I know what you mean, but but I think that people misunderstand certain things about stealth. Like, they think it's all about the ghillie suit and only a bit about movement, whereas it's probably mostly about movement and not that much. Like, you could be in DPM and be not moving in Raiders engines.
Well, this is the thing,
and they wouldn't spot you.
Your suit is invisible, until you moved, and then your suit meant nothing, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. People think, wait there, if I look like a bush and I move, I'm just a mobile bush. No, you're now just a mass of things that I'm incredibly drawn to, and you stick out. It's when you move slow and low, and you're moving from environments that suit your suit. Like you might be, like you've obviously on that suit. The video keeps looping, but obviously you haven't got a lot of greens in there. You've just got a little bit, right? So you are works because there's little bits of green. But if you went and laid in those green plants, you would stick out, right? Because there's a huge mass of green, and then you'd be a huge mass of brown next to it. Whereas if you were in between, you'd bridge the gap.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the whole like the macro pattern comes in. So I know I was talking about that earlier, but basically, if you can, this suit was made for winters, but the summer suits that I make are half brown, normally half brown, half green, and the pattern created by them is made so that it can blend into both environments, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're in an all green environment and you have a bit of brown on you, as long as that brown doesn't like have a sharp edge on it, it can still kind of work. And the same in an all brown environment.
Well, I think this is where some people can go wrong, because if you solely have a suit that is designed to blend in on the forest floor, brilliant. Yeah. In that 10% of field you're playing at, you might be 100% truly concealed.
Yeah.
But you've now made yourself stick out 90% in 90% of where you're playing.
Yeah.
Because some people go, sun's out, I best put ferns over my entire suit. That's great. You can lay in a bed of ferns and you'll be invisible. Do you intend on spending your entire game in that bed of ferns? Because the second you step out into just a dead leaf or anything,
like I move around. Hutchie knows. I move around a lot more than him, but still.
It's because Hutchie's a sloth. He is a sloth.
He's very cautious and he doesn't get taken out.
He's very good. He is very good.
Yeah, I get taken out a lot more than Hutchie. I don't know how many kills we get like between us. Like we have a joke that Hutchie has only had 6 this year, but like what was I going to say? Like you've got to move, and for me, like movement, especially if I'm playing with something like an MTW, all of my movement is really done when I think or I have a hunch that the enemy isn't looking at me. So I'll be like still. I want to get closer to the enemy. And I'll be watching them. And when I think they're not looking, I'll sprint forwards and then just crouch. And then they'll look and they won't see anything because I'm in a suit. And then they'll look away and I'll sprint forward again. It's kind of like that cat video that came up ages ago.
Yeah.
Like, move closer to the camera each time. That is one of the ways that I play with just
the MTW. And with an MTW, you've got that advantage, right? Whereas with a sniper or like a rifle with an MED and a slower rate of fire.
You don't
movement.
Like the Mark 23?
Pardon?
You don't like the Mark 23?
I tell you what, I've got a Mark 23. Of course, I've got a few.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
but I found the last few games. I would, if I was confident of where I was in my suit, and I knew the site well, and there was a group of like, let's say Battle Lakes is a site I used to go to quite a lot. Like, that was my go-to all the time. And I knew it quite well. I knew there are bits of the undergrowth that I could get through. So I would know what suit, because I'd take different suits for different, I'd wear a different suit depending on how I wanted to play. Like, I took 2 suits with me all the time. Or I'd take a suit and a hood usually, or a suit and a cape. Just so if I want to play one way or the other, like, I will, like you, I'll be aggressive. I will rely on my ability to zip from place to place unencumbered, but out of eyesight, that just wearing a hood and a balaclava and some decent BDUs is gonna not sort of get anyone's attention if they happen to look my direction. And I'd run, oddly, I actually had an MTW as well, so great guns. Whereas obviously I don't have the same range, and I mean the MTW is a really bad example because they are incredibly quiet, but let's say a normal AEG, you don't want to get too close because they'll hear you. So running a hood's fine. You're going to stay out of MED. You've still got a bit of range, but you can move unencumbered. Whereas with an MK23 or a decent suppressed rifle, then you can creep up to 30 meters, ping people off, and then when they come looking, you've got your MK and you can just tuck up in a good spot now, and your whole suit is going to conceal you. Versus if you've got a hood and someone's looking at you, they're not going to see you. If all of a sudden they've veered off and they turn around and they look from an angle, they've just got this lovely crafted thing and then a pair of legs. So you have to be a lot more conscious about your movement. But we are getting distracted, so I'm going to switch this back to a fancy
I think it's
image
like,
review.
As I said, it's only camouflage is only like 40% of.
Oh wow, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm hoping the questions are going to work, guys, because every time I do this, Facebook changes it. So let's do this one. Publish question. There you go. So Lucas asks, full suit versus Cobra and half style suits. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know how many questions there are, but I'll try and get through them as quickly as possible. So full suit is for best for someone that wants to try and flank around the enemy and get to places where your team isn't. Whereas a Cobra hood, I would say, is like you're playing amongst your team in a concealed location, and then your arc where the enemy is very small. So it really only is your shoulders and head showing. If the enemy's on your side or anywhere else, not so good.
Yeah, I same train of thought. If you're going to be in and amongst enemies, you need 360 degrees of concealment. If you're direct or flanking and you can control the direction of which you're going to be seen to a degree, obviously, then yeah, having the mobility and the reduced weight of a full suit is brilliant. And next one, is it going to work? So this is from Jamie Norman asking, do you like that ghillie and leaf suits have become more the norm to see at games now?
I really don't. Some people don't like it. I really don't mind. Like, I do get a bit annoyed when I see like a badly crafted suit and I just have to hold it in. And I don't. It sounds really arrogant now, but I have to remember that I once genuinely had the worst suit in the UK, so I can't say anything.
Welcome to my life. Every time I go somewhere and I hear the clank of an SSG, and I'm like, what was that sound?
Yeah.
Just twang, clunk, great.
Yeah.
But it's the funny thing is, I've been airsofting since like 2004, so a long time, and it has drastically changed how games are played. Like even just in the last 4 or 5 years, just from like KM, Bodge Ups, Novritsch, and some of the others.
It's a different game. I don't knock anyone that wants to try it.
No, not at all.
I understand that like operating a bolt action is very much something you need to learn and get good at rather than running and gunning. I'm not saying that some of the best players are AEG players, but sniping is something that you have to like learn about.
Yeah, it requires a different skill set, doesn't it? And like if you give a sniper an AEG, that sniper will pretty much play the same way, really. Albeit probably a bit more conscious about how close they are and if they can be heard. Whereas you give an AEG player a ghillie suit and a sniper, it's a lot harder to pick up that mindset and play that way. Whereas everything you do as an AEG player doesn't necessarily transform in terms of if you wanted to go into the sniper role. Whereas everything you learn as a sniper, say as a sniper, like it's some profession rule in, everything you learn as that part of the hobby is transferable. Like you can take everything, every tactic, every bit of knowledge and apply that to any other way you want to play the game, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say. This is an interesting one. I'm interested to know this one. So this is from Sebastian Elmond asking, have you ever made a snow camo? Cheers from Sweden, Sneaky Airsofter.
Yes, Sneaky Airsofter. I see that a company that produces suits recently made a leaf suit that was white, and to me that is literally the most pointless thing I've ever seen, because
or ones that are covered in jute and you're like, yes, those regions where grass grows white and voluptuously.
It's to do with reflectance. So snow is like the most reflective thing I can think of in an environment. Why you would want to create little shadows in that by having a 3D form doesn't make sense. So a snow ghillie is just a white sheet. I promise you, a white sheet.
Oh,
Without
absolutely.
anything.
Yep. No, I'm with you on that one.
Put some tiny splotches of grey if you really are going to be playing in woodland snow. But yeah.
Oddly enough, if you are ever playing in snow, like if you're at a site and it's started to snow, PTFE tape is a really cheap, easy way to just wrap it around your suit and your gun and just have it on there. Just because it doesn't need to be perfect. It's just a bit of white on something. Your brain thinks snow's collected because it hasn't moved. If it hasn't moved, it must belong. And it's such a stupid psychological thing, but must work. This is better suited to you. So, Jonathan May, what's the best colour browns to dye cotton and what brand? If you're comfortable, obviously, giving it out, you can just say, get out of it, Jonathan.
I can't say, I can't pretend I don't just use eBay cotton. I buy eBay cotton in taupe, which is this colour here. It's probably not going to show up, but basically TAUPE is the colour, and it's basically a sort of lightish greyish brown. And they don't do the color that I want, honestly. Like those are the two colors separated, like that they do. So the darkest brown, and this, like there's no in between colors. So you have to dye the lighter one different shades with. I use Dylon, just brown Dylon. You come up with different colors, and depending on how much dye you put in, you can create different shades of the brown. And then another way, like if you are wanting to do it quickly at home, you can just dye it with coffee, instant coffee. I know it sounds strange, but it does work.
Same with the silk leaves. You can and raffia, you just boil it in it.
Yeah, and that will make actually a really interesting color. Very good for beach woodland. Sort of warm color, warm orangey color. So yeah.
And this is what I. So this is Steve Bayliss, also Hadron. Although, why is it? It's gone off the screen. He says, is there a place for pheasant feathers on suits? I do believe these birds are not daft. I personally have used pheasant feathers because I think they stick out and they've got a really weird pattern to them. And they're free because I live in a place where there's always dead pheasants. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't used them. I mean, I have to say, like, pheasants are very camouflaged in certain environments, like super camouflaged. But don't forget that that's when all of their feathers are together creating a pattern. If you just have like their tail feathers sticking out of your hat, it might look like a stick, I guess, and they're very lightweight and flexible, and they're not going to catch on things. So yes, I don't know. Like it's not really a clear answer. I don't know. I was about to diss it, but then I didn't.
So this one is from Dan Powell, and he says, can you use a suit straight out of the bag, e.g. a KM suit, or do you have to add stuff to make it an effective suit? Dan, effective.
That's a good question. So people buy the MWS Tokimiri gun, and apparently it's amazing out of the box.
Probably one of the best guns I've ever shot.
Yeah,
and owned.
Like, yeah, but then you get guys literally spending £1,000 on upgrades. To make it shoot like a tiny bit better. I wouldn't call it that extreme, like with Ghillie Crafting, but you get the idea. Like, yes, you can make them better but you can also make them worse. And I've seen a lot of MWSs that shoot way worse than out of the box.
People that spend £1,000 on a recoil for it to shoot 5 meters further and last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What else? Some of these are repeat questions, so I don't want to keep putting the same sort of things. I like this one because I like how he's referred to you.
Mr. Silly, will you be making any sniper, i.e. SRS VSR covers? Will you be collaborating with
the next comment, it says, Mr. Silly, will you be making any sniper? It's cut it off for some reason, i.e. SRS or VSR covers. Will you be collaborating with the Boogeyman? Am I the Boogeyman? Are you the Boogeyman?
He's referring to
James?
KM.
Oh, yeah, could be, yeah.
I've talked to James about rifle covers before, and he doesn't feel comfortable uh, doing it because it's so easy to do by yourself, and really it's my fault for not putting out a good enough video on how to do them. I know you can get companies that make them for you, but they're like 80 quid for a rifle cover, and I genuinely you can do one for like silly amounts of little money. So
Mm.
no, we were thinking about it, but it's not something we have really considered.
David Wong wants to know your thoughts on Novritsch mesh.
Did you say it was Halo?
Yeah,
What's Novritsch Halo? I think he means the screen, the tully, but yeah,
the tool,
tully.
tally.
It's not Halo. I don't really know anything about the Novritsch mesh, but I've seen it on the seats, and its hue, the color of the color, if you get what I mean. It's the power of its color is very faded. It's meant to replicate green leaves. It barely looks green in certain environments.
It's like a really watered out pastel, isn't it? There's
Yeah.
no, it's
I
not.
mean, I'm not like a Novritsch basher. I have the SSG10, and I know it's not fashionable
Wait,
even
you've
to
got a
say it.
VSR 10 and an SSG 10.
I bought the SSG10 in the winter sale because it was only £160 or £170, and I was like, if I ever have a problem with one of my VSRs, I can at least have that as a backup.
I
Um,
need to pinch that off you at some point. Actually,
I've upgraded it though, but yeah, okay,
is it
whatever.
still got the stock cylinder?
Yes.
Right, there's a prototype coming, and I'll need to test it in a few things, and an SSG 10's one of them, and I haven't got one. Not
Okay.
anymore. Did I have one? No, I never had one. I just stole Mark's last time. Um, this one's a good one. Adam Campbell. Has Ed ever put a crafted item down on the ground to test and couldn't find it again?
No, but I have lost my VSR like for half an hour, and all the marshals were looking for it. So yes, I guess I have put it down. Is it gunman, not gunman,
Ow.
Green Team Airsoft, and Foxy and all the marshals were looking for
Did
my
you
custom
leave it
VSR.
standing by a tree or laying down while you went to hunt someone with a pistol? Come back and go, shit.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, I think we've all done that. Is there any more? um, specific question? I don't know if you might be able to answer it. I think it's very dependent, but have a crack at it.
How much time you let in die? Oh, how much time does it take in the dye to come up with the color? It's not a matter of that. Well, it's always an hour because I put it in the washing machine, like huge sheets, all in the washing machine with the washing machine dye, and it always takes the same amount of time, 2 hours. What determines its color is how much dye I put in. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Right,
I
so
can't have
you're doing this in the washing machine.
It's a washing machine dye.
Well, I guess so. Yeah.
I know you can dye it just in a bathtub, but this does it better.
Yeah.
Trust
No.
me.
To be fair, work smarter, not harder. That's a. I just didn't. For some reason, my brain just went to Kate. You'll be really upset if I start dyeing her clothes brown.
Yeah. It
That's
doesn't
just
doesn't affect the other clothes that you put in there. You put it on a cycle afterwards. But yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of repeat questions, which is generally asking about dyeing stuff. Um,
Yeah, I
oh,
mean,
here's another one from Dan Powell. This is a relevant one because I think you've met him.
summer games at Imperium, it's very green. It's nearly all green because you're not under the canopy, so there's no brand on the ground. So that suit in the intro picture you see right there, on the one on the right hand side, that's me at Imperium, and that's the kind of shrubbery you get at Imperium. In the fields, there's not much cover, obviously, and the grasses there that grow up, they have a bit of brown, I guess, in them. But whether you think that I wouldn't ever hide in that position because it's just I'm going to be my whole body is going to be slightly
Mm.
silhouetted. You could try. I mean, the only other thing I could think of for Imperium, so I would say full green suit for Imperium. Um, but the other thing you could possibly try is a full raffia suit, and that would be quite interesting. I have seen them. So basically, you're a grass
Yeah.
ghillie.
Yeah, the old jute suits. Obviously,
No,
with
not
raffia.
jute.
No, not
Yeah,
jute, but as in what they look like is just long
yeah,
swamp thingy
long.
looking things. I think. Right, there's one more question we'll do. One more. I don't think I did this one earlier. So, Jamie Norman, have you tie-dyed green and browns? Could this work?
Tied
I
as
just
in
think
tied
hippie.
together.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's what it means. Yeah, tied. No, because then you end up with the color. I'm about to. What was the color I was thinking? There was a suit made recently, and it genuinely looked like they'd mixed green and brown. Oh yes, it's a suit I can't mention, but basically the color that you mix brown and green together, you get that color. It does nothing for you.
I think I know. Yeah.
Alba.
Oh yeah. Right.
You want
Well.
contrast between the green and brown, basically.
A couple more questions have just come in and they're relevant, so we'll do them. We've overrun by a little bit, but we'll do. So, Richard Galloway, what would you do for Imperium or to Wintertime, since he plays there too?
I know Richard.
He's Otar shop, isn't he? Otar Essoff.
Yeah.
I've got his MK kit. It's very nice.
We never have. I'm always in a rush at Imperium, and I never get the time to like have a nice conversation with him. But he's
really nice.
There.
I've spoken to him
really
quite a lot.
nice.
Not in person. We've just been speaking online, but
in
nice,
winter,
Richard.
I think Imperium is probably one of the greenest sites in winter that I play at, because, well, there are some evergreen bushes, but then obviously you get like very steep banks everywhere, and the banks are just grass banks, and grass is green in summer as well. I maybe just go for like a in between green and brown, maybe slightly more brown, because you do want to be hiding in bushes ideally, but and bushes are brown in winter. So yeah.
And then the last one before we call it an end, James Hamilton, Ed, when are you going to get an AEP for a sidearm?
James is one of the people I play most with, along with Hutchie. I have to say, so me and Hutchie are having like an ongoing discussion, as are pretty much all the snipers, like the Mark 23. Why don't I put this question to you, because it's something you know more about. What do you think of AEPs in a ghillie suit with as an alternative to the Mark 23? Because they're quiet. I'm just going to say that.
I've had a couple of AEPs. In fact, I don't know if Gary's in, but I'm almost certain he's still got an AEP that he was meant to build for me about 3-4 years ago. Out of the box, there isn't an AEP worth using. Like, they're genuinely, you'll just be at a disadvantage in every possible situation. Other than, I think a company called Bugatti, they were certainly one of the first companies, but they started doing pre-upgraded AEPs with lipos and MOSFETs. And they're not too bad. They're low power, but if you get them upgraded with a few simple things, like I know Grey Fox has got a Glock that he's done, and obviously KM has had the Mac, the AEP one, but with a few parts, they're not bad. But the problem is, like, the 2 or 3 parts you need to put in them to make them last a bit better cost twice as much as what the pistol cost. So they're a bit of a money pit. Like, if you're up to 20 meters and you're just going to full auto someone on 2 5s, they're fine. But yeah, I think they've certainly got a place. If upgrades became cheaper and more readily available, they're certainly an option, because they are quiet. They're like a get me out of shit gun. Like, you could be surrounded and just.
James, the guy that asked the question, he gets more kills with that AEP than I do definitely on certain maps. He gets more kills with that AEP than I do with my Mark 23. And I mean, he's got a very good suit, so he waits for them to get close, and he knows he's going to hit them, and then he just sprays them with a little.
They are good because you get that rate of fire with them, and they are very, very quiet. Like there just isn't a lot to them. But I think the ones from, I'm almost certain it's Bugatti. They're cheap as well. Like they're really cheap, but they came with a MOSFET and a LiPo, and they were fine. They were like 250 FPS maybe, but you get a better barrel and a better bucking, and that's it. You don't really have to. It's basically what you want to use it for. If you are literally just ambushing small groups of people within like a short distance on light ammo, then yeah, to whip one of them out, especially considering the mags are tiny. Like you can fit like 4 of those mags for one VSR mag in the same pouch, and they're light as well. Well, we're gonna end it there. Any closing thoughts from you, Ed? Any parting tips? And I suppose, do people want us to do another one? Because me and Ed were talking about how we could probably do quite a few of these, covering quite a wide variety of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think like the interesting thing about, I don't know, stealth is that yes, camouflage is part of it, but there's the whole other like stealth movement and how do you play stealthily. And I mean that's not something I'm like, you can watch YouTube videos all you like and they don't really show, well, apart from maybe one of Fox's that's about to come out, but they don't really show the process of how you get to a position. And I think that's like the thing that players don't really see, and because it's very boring watching someone watching a bush or watching someone move slowly.
Yeah,
it's not content.
Like, I don't suppose you've never done a sniper ops event, have you? Like I think you came on the scene after they'd all sort of dwindled down.
I was playing as an AEG player, so
yeah, just because I think Gary's done Kenny's. I think Kenny is the reigning champion for the most kills at a sniper ops event, and I've got a couple of wins under my belt, and I think it was pretty even. But they're very good events. Like if you were to tell someone about the event or play it yourself, they're very, very slow paced. But I learnt more. So the first time I played 3 or 4 sniper ops, and the first time I was paired with James against all the veterans, and we won. We won by 1 point. It's because I got a headshot on Paul with the last BB in my Tanaka in the last hour of the game, and it put us 1 up. But that game, I learned so much more than I had watching all these YouTube videos because I was in it on the fly, having to learn stuff. Obviously, James was there telling me stuff, and at the end of the event, I was talking to the other players, and it was like, "Well, how did you know I was there?" And it'd be like, "Oh, because I could see your boots. That's all I could see." Or you moved, the wind was blowing, and you were moving against the way the leaves were blowing, so you stood out as a static thing that wasn't flowing. And you can learn so much from it, and a lot of it you can watch someone tell you need to do this and you need to do that, but it isn't the same as being in that situation and trying it for yourself or having to do it yourself.
Interestingly, that you say you learned stuff through like talking to players that had seen you in situations. So maybe just talking can have some part to play in like learning. Stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But
I find myself like slightly cringing when I'm talking about like how you play airsoft, because it is obviously just like it is just a silly game that we play out in the woods. Yes, I know, I've heard it a million times.
It's the same.
It's clearly something that you can get good at, and it's a game like a computer game, and people take computer games far more seriously than I take airsoft. So,
yeah, I definitely. Yeah, it's one of those. So many people play in so many different ways, in different environments. Because the thing is, you could be really good. You could go to a regular site and play there all the time and think yourself quite good. And then you can go to another site and what you've learned and how you play that recipe might not be suited to that. Like, I'm conscious we are running over, but a very, very quick story. And some of the guys in the chat were with me, but we've been to France, right? Up Bear's Head, it's called. We went there a few times. Up an old World War mountain, brilliant. Best place, like one of the best places I've ever been. I've been there a couple of times. The caliber, and this is going to upset everyone in the UK, the caliber of player there was astronomically better than any event and any meal sim I've ever been to in the UK. For one simple reason. You shoot someone as a sniper in the UK, they will stand there and bitch. They won't take cover, they won't flank you, they won't communicate, they will stand there and whinge or shoot in your general direction. I was playing with Paul Smith, Gunsmithy, and we were on a bank and we could hear loads of talking and we were like, are we near them? Like, that sounds like a lot more than just a patrol. Are we on their spawn or are they guarding something? And we peek over, it's like 8 guys, all by a truck, and that truck is an objective that we need to stop. So me and Paul were like, do we go for it? Like, we've got our MKs and I think we were both running 226s. So we just lean over and blitz the lot. We missed one guy. He's behind the truck and we just hear him shouting in German, I think, not even French, on the comms. And then out of nowhere, people come across the bridge. People are coming down a hill. They're all pointing, they're all communicating, and they're just coming at us from like every direction. And me and Paul were like, well, this does not happen. And we got absolutely spanked. And it wasn't, it happened time and time again. They just communicated and they moved and they didn't just come at you. They were zigzagging, they were flanking, they were constantly shooting, stopping. And it was really hard to react. And more often than not, we just couldn't get out of there. Like, they'd be stepping on us and you'd have to engage them, but they'd be 10 feet back, split into another pair. So you'd get that first pair and then you've just given your position away. Yeah, and I learned so much playing there because
I need to go to Bear's Head.
Yeah, that's right. We'll set up another stream.
And I need to go there, and you need to come to Bear's Head again sometime because I think it's long overdue.
I'd go to France again. I don't see myself playing in the UK very often, but I'd absolutely go to France again. Just even from the social side of it, it was just really nice. It's really chilled out weekend. The drive there is horrible. It's like 9 hours, 10 hours round to leave here and get there, but it's certainly worthwhile. People in the comments saying they've learned a lot from you, playing with you. Ryan Morris has played a lot, said he's learned from you.
Ryan, he needs to come out and play again.
Yeah, I think he bought a suit off me.
Yeah, I think he probably did. He's very much like wanting to.
Has he caught the bug?
He's caught the bug, and he's one of the best for sort of listening to advice. Like, some people aren't or just don't want advice, but he's very much like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, some people ask for advice hoping that you're just going to reassure them that what they're doing is right, and when it isn't, they're just like, not that interested in what you've got to say.
Yeah.
They're looking for validation more than they are valid information.
Yeah.
Ryan says, I am a sponge. Nothing wrong with being a sponge. Right, guys. Are you doing any more work, Ed? Can people still message you? Are you doing anything for anyone? Are you available to do stuff for people still, or?
I'm in a bit of a difficult spot at the moment because I'm getting orders in the whole time, and I can't do any of the things that I kind of wanted to do 6 months ago in terms of like developing maybe a product or Gilly, something you can buy or something like that. So I want to get back to that, and as of now, I'm probably going to do a post soon. I'm going to say like I may not be taking orders for quite some time until I get this product on the way. So yeah,
which is fair enough. I don't touch people's guns anymore. It's one of those I can't. For me personally, I can't charge enough to warrant. I put far too much time into it than what I would charge someone for. And obviously now I'm fully on my own, doing everything by myself, self-funded, all that shit. I have to be a bit more mindful of how I spend my time. So I don't really touch other people's rifles.
Put it like this: I put like maybe 1,500 cable ties into a suit, so it's very tedious, and I kind of want to do other things as well as this.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, at the end of the day, there's only so many hours in the day, and customer service.
Maybe not time quite that many cable ties. I haven't calculated it, but a lot of cable ties have been through my hands.
Right, and the last thing then is, where can people find you? Where's your content?
YouTube, Silly Gilly, Instagram, Silly Gilly, and Facebook, Silly Gilly. and Instagram's got 3 of those underscores.
Yeah, see, that threw me when I got sent your Discord name. I was like, is that spaces or underscores? Now we know.
And everyone knows you because it's your stream.
Yeah, people come in for the guests, not me. I've been quiet for ages. I'm just a facilitator at this point.
You know, your YouTube video on the MTW was what made me get an MTW. Honestly, just looking around at like a quiet.
Typically, one of my best videos in terms of like I was happy with how it come out, reasonable amount of views. The one video that didn't get monetized, and I was like, "You bastards! Like, why? This is the most informative video I've done." Yeah, the MTW. I think it was the MTW and the SRS one, the ones that I put the most amount of time and information in, that have the most comments, likes, and views. Obviously, my views are nothing compared to others, and it was like, no monetization for you. I'm like, why? I really wanted that 15p. Like, I earned that 15p. But never mind. Right, guys.
I think you should do more of, if you can be bothered, like.
Well, I'm moving, and one of the reasons we're moving is so that because I work from home almost exclusively now, unless I'm at other clients' places, is an office. I've actually spent the last couple of days CAD designing how my office is going to look, so I can get back to doing my streaming, obviously all my design, and then behind me will be a massive bench where I will be doing all my tech stuff with basically this sort of format. But that big screen, imagine that's my hands top down doing a rifle, and then my face up here talking about why I'm using a part, and then instructions below. Like, I've got a whole thing of getting all my content back out. Obviously, my blog was rebuilt not too long ago. I'm doing content on there sort of every 1-2 weeks. I'm trying to set up Patreon. I've got a load of cool stuff coming on there. Some other merch and stuff coming, like patches and stuff that people keep asking me for.
Can you say what might be next for sale from Sniper Mechanics?
Yeah, I can actually. I'm actually going to check my phone because I've been waiting all day for a message from a factory. Is
it the thing that is going to make me very happy, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I am expecting the VSR Wasp to land the prototype on the 25th of this month. So that is my first prototype of my newest version of the VSR. Basically, how the TAC Wasp looks and the new SRS Wasp. I've got the VSR/SSG10/Scout coming, and I've already got a few components that I'm already testing, but now I've got a full set coming with the cups, and something for the MTW.
That makes me very happy to hear, because I only use VSRs. I'm a man of
my collection is
what he likes.
I've got one SRS, one TAC, and about 6 VSRs, and then some other fancier guns. But yeah, so the
stomp on everything, but I just am in love with.
I do. I just think they're the only platform that has stood the test of time. They weren't a fad. Their quality has remained the same. Poor. But the aftermarket availability of parts has always got better. Whereas what I've found more recently is companies have started up here and then just ended up slightly lower. Whereas the VSR is you kind of buy it knowing you're building it. You're not buying a pre-built gun, you're always building it. And I like that about VSRs. Like how you like crafting and want to design and innovate and create the newest, best thing and share knowledge. That's me with rifles. But I really do like the VSR. But cylinders, cylinder heads, and it's obviously it's money for me. Obviously, I've gone out properly on my own now. No complications. We'll go complications. People know we'll go with complications. So obviously now I've got a lot more time to do stuff and an inclination. Like I want to do it. Like when you're doing it for yourself, there's more interest than doing something that you know is going to get taken from under you. So now obviously
you want to share it as well. Like I find, like every time I come up with a new idea, the first inclination I have is, oh my god, I really want to share this to my friend because he's going to love it. But you just can't. You have to keep it like to yourself.
Yeah, I've found being forthcoming and trying to be helpful gets you one thing, and it isn't anything nice. So, as like obviously there's things I've shared with you. There's some people in the stream, like there's random customers that happen to have a platform, or I just know game a lot, and I'll just be like, "Do you want to test something?" And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Here's an AEG bucking. Go play." And then a year later, they're like, "Where's that fucking bucking? Because I've got one and it works." I'm like, "It costs lots of money."
Yeah.
But yeah,
Thank you
there's some
very
cool
much
things
for
coming.
the AEG bookings.
Yeah,
'Cause
they're coming next week. Hopefully, the prototypes. I've got about 20 Super Mingos.
Yeah.
Annoyingly, I've had that project sat for ages, and then when certain things happened, I was like, "The fuck am I going to release that?" I think I'll keep that. Thank you very much. But Gary's had them, and Steve's had them, and a few people have had them in their VSRs for a long time. And
What the VSRs?
yeah, so you know,
What
obviously I've got the Flamingo.
AEG?
No, the AEG ones as well. But before the AEG, I did 2 Flamingos. I only ever released one because it was the most universally
Sorry. Got you.
most universally compatible. But I've got the Super Flamingo, which only fits in like 5 brands of barrels. And put it this way, I've got a 1 dual rifle that I would put against your 2.3 dual rifle at the same target.
I know what rifle you've called it a woman's name because it doesn't hurt. No.
Yeah.
I right back at you. No, seriously, what is the name of the gun?
The rifle's called a Delisle.
Delisle. Yeah.
It's an old World War II rifle. It's one of the first internally suppressed rifles. And I've got a friend called Eric. Shout out for him, by the way. He runs a company called AR Custom Works, and he hand makes some of the best wood stocks you'll ever see. And I did all the internals and he did all the externals for this Delisle rifle, which you can find on my blog. The thing defies science. There isn't someone who's picked it up and shot it and hasn't gone, "Oh, that's got to be a bit hot." And I'm like, no. It took like 3 seconds to hit 100 meters. How much do you reckon it's shooting? It's a joule.
Yeah.
It's 1.1 joule on a 4.8.
I know. It is incredible.
It just floats though. It takes forever. You could get a bus ride to the target and back, and it would still be floating on its way out there. But I think that's it. We have severely run over. I knew we would. When we got talking the other day, I was like,
great. And like obviously, I would love to come back and do another one.
Yeah, people want it in the comments. A few people...
And we can come up with a topic, and if people are interested, then they'll watch it.
Yeah, I think next time we'll just have one topic for the hour, just because I think we could fill it. I can have more than one person on. Like we could get like 3 or 4 of us on.
No, it's just me and you.
We could do it. We could do it with ones. All right. Well, everyone in the chat. Obviously, I've been here with Ed, Silly Gilly. You can find him on all social media platforms as Silly Gilly, except Instagram. It's Silly and then 3 underscores Gilly. But I've tagged him in the story and content today. So if you're not already following him, go check out my story, grab his profile, go follow him. And yeah, for you, Ed, thank you for coming on. It's been good. Obviously, we've been speaking offline, but yeah, we'll chat some ideas. I'd definitely like to, because I want to get Gary on as well at some point to do some tech stuff. And obviously, you and me can jump on and get some other content going. Caleb Tucker's just joined. We're just finishing, Caleb, but this will be on Facebook and YouTube in a couple of days. Although I didn't record it, Lucas is going to kill me. But we're going to go, guys. So thank you very much, and we will speak to you all later.